on December 15th became the newest African country to commercially produce oil. We're expected to earn about $400 million in revenue in the first year from the production of oil. How best can this revenue be used to improve the lives of Ghanaians?
I think that we have to look upon this revenue as a source of additional money for the transformation of our economy. What we dare not do is just concentrate on getting the oil out of the sea and exporting it out of our country. That will not help us. We need to have all the downstream activities that come from the production of the oil here, the petrochemical industries that have to be, the salt industry that has to be developed, the plastics industries that have to be developed. All of these are the industries that have to be developed around the oil field for us to make the oil a blessing, as they keep saying, and not a curse. We've seen what has happened in some of our sister countries in Africa, who just depended on the crude, the export of the crude, and no more. It has not benefited them. It has benefited the few who are in charge of that process, but the larger society has not benefited from it. It is absolutely essential that we make sure in Ghana that the larger society is the person, is the entity that benefits from this production. I think it can be done. Proper laws put in place, laws that make sure that the revenues are spent in a prudent manner, that they're spent in a manner which is transparent. Every single individual in Ghana have access to seeing how these monies are coming in and how they're being distributed. That is why we have taken a very strong stance of this Petroleum Revenue Management Bill that is currently before our Parliament. And we've had some serious disagreements with the current government on the manner in which that bill should be advanced. We're saying that, first of all, the money shouldn't get mixed up in the normal accounts of government. Outside the consolidated fund, create a special petroleum fund which can be easily audited, to which all our oil revenues flow. And from that fund, we have dedicated uses for the oil, the development of our infrastructure, the development of our educational system, the development of our agro-industrial activity. These are the areas that we're looking to ignite this transformation process in Ghana. It can be a blessing for us if we go not the way of some of the countries in Africa, but preferably more the ways of the developed nations like Norway, which took very strict measures to make sure that the oil was used in an intelligent and prudent manner. This is a resource that doesn't live forever. It's not even like cocoa, which you can grow till the end of time. This one is there for a limited period and then it goes. So you want to make sure that at the end of that limited lifespan, there is a transformed Ghanaian economy that comes out of it. This is the way that we're looking at the development of our oil industry here. Let me repeat it again. If the attitude is that it is just yet another raw material, that we're satisfied from it, in 10, 15, 20 years' time, nobody will see the value of it. But if the attitude is that it becomes a source, an additional source for the project of transforming the Ghanaian economy, at the end of 10 years, we will see that transformed Ghanaian economy as the real beneficiary of our oil fund. And I'm hoping that that is the way Ghana will go. Certainly that will be the effort that I will make if I'm given the opportunity by God and the people of Ghana to lead the country in the near future. That is the way that I'll try and direct our country.
Nana, so we've talked about politics, we've touched on the economy. Now we're going to get a little personal. You were born into a very active political family. In fact, about 3 of the big 6, these are the people who were instrumental in Ghana attaining independence. About 3 of them, you were related to them. Can you tell us, is being born into an active political family a blessing or a curse?
I think for somebody who wanted to go all along to go into politics was definitely a blessing. Because what it did was that it allowed one to see from the very beginning what the issues were in going for a political life. In the 50s, when I was growing up, these relatives of mine that you're talking about were the leaders of the opposition to Kwame Nkrumah. And it had a big impact on my life and the way we live, because you suddenly saw friends can disappear from my parents' life, who reappeared only when Nkrumah was overthrown. All kinds of little details like that tells you that the life of a politician in our circumstances is quite a lonely one, and that you're required to be very clear as to why you're there. If you don't have any strong principles for why you're there, it becomes very, very difficult to be able to survive all the difficulties that come from political life. That's a major thing that I saw from my family. They were so committed to their idea of what Ghana should be that they were prepared to brave all the difficulties and problems that were thrown in their way. And in the end, Dr. Dankwa, my grandfather, died in jail, died in Nkrumah's cells as a detainee, as somebody who was in prison, who was never given the opportunity of a trial. My own father was sacked as a judge in this country for giving a decision that the then President Nkrumah didn't like. My uncle Willie, who was the other third member of the Big Six, also had his bouts of detention, all because of their commitment and their beliefs that they were determined at all costs to prosecute and advance for our country. So that's a major lesson that I learned from it, that yes, it could be a very exciting life, but it can also be a very lonely life. And the only real justification for being in politics is because you believe very strongly in certain ideas, certain values, certain attitudes that you think should be the attitudes that animate your society. And that's why you want to get into the whole hurly-burly of trying to see to it that they advance. But I'm sure, Amma, you've seen, it's not easy, the life of politicians in our part of the world. And therefore, for me, the belief system is the center. I think that our country can be a certain kind of country, and I'm prepared to try and fight for it to be that kind of country, a free country. First of all, people can speak their mind without looking over their shoulder and worrying whether policemen will come and knock on their door because they have said something that the president of the day doesn't like. And that you can associate with whoever you like. If you think that things are going wrong in the country and you want to demonstrate against them, that you have the opportunity to do so. And you can speak your mind freely. You can worship whatever God that you like, associate with people of like mind, and have a life of dignity as an individual in a society which is open and free. That is the Ghana that we hope will emerge from our activities. One where also the ballot box, not guns, not force, but that the ballot box becomes the agency, the instrument for determining who should have power at any given time. And you have a Ghana too, where different people are responsible for different things. Judges are there to determine issues of guilt or innocence when it comes to crime or ownership of property or what the Constitution should do. They have their preserve. The people who make our laws have their preserve. Those who run our governments have a preserve. That whole system of the separation of powers. These are the values that animate me. They're the ones that I want to see established as central to our body politic, that we develop as a free democratic state. That is why I am in the because I believe that it is through that our people also can develop their talents, their God-given talents, to their full, to their maximum. And by that, we help develop our country and bring our country to prosperity. I don't think it's an accident that the countries in the world that have prospered are the countries that have been founded on the principles that I'm talking about. I want Ghana to join them as quickly as possible. And we don't continue to talk about ourselves as part of the so-called third world or backward Africa, but that we are also part of those who are at the very forefront of human development. Make a civilization here in Ghana that people can look at and say, yes, these people are as good as anybody else anywhere in the world. Not always making excuses for ourselves as to why we're second or third best. We should always be striving to be the first. I think we have the capacity to be amongst the first, and that's why I'm in politics.
Nana, you mentioned that you've experienced members of your family disappearing for political reasons. You, in fact, you've gone into exile twice. And in 1975, you returned home from exile, and it was a very dangerous political situation, but you still returned home. Can you tell us why you returned home? It was a bit courageous to return home under dangerous political and circumstances. And can you shed light on how being in exile changed you?
I was brought up at home to believe that the most fulfilling life is the life of service to your society and to your community. That the way a person best fulfills themselves is how they contribute to the life of the community of which they are part. And that therefore, at anyone's time, the concept of service should dominate the way you look at things. So for me, exile, political, all of it was part and parcel of one thing: how to contribute to making the society into which I had been born a better one. That is the attitude that has inspired me all my life, continues to inspire me today. Yes, you have a life for yourself as a human being, but the greater life that you have is the way that you can serve your society for the society to progress. So issues of danger, personal danger, are really secondary as far as I'm concerned. At all times, it is how you position yourself to be able to serve your community and your society, and thereby serve your nation. Those are the really important values that were given to me in my home as a child, and has guided me all my life.
Nana Addo, about 60 years ago, key members of the African community, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Dr. Dankwa, Hifikepunye, even Mugabe, all of them returned to their native countries from abroad to come and spearhead the movement for independence. How can Ghanaians abroad now, what's the best way to utilize them to bring change in the African communities today?
I think the first thing is that they, like us, recognize that we are all part and parcel of the same. We're all, as it were, rowing in the same boat. Even though people are abroad, if their attitude is that being abroad is about how to help transform the circumstances of home, already you have got a step forward. I think that is the heart of it. And when you look at many of the societies in the modern era which have seen rapid development, like say even Great China, people forget today the critical role that overseas Chinese have played in the development of China. Those who are in the Canadas and in the Americas and in Western Europe, who have used their presence there to help mobilize capital and resources for China, skills for China. That is they don't necessarily have to go to China. They can live where they are, but they recognize that whatever they're doing over there is in order to help strengthen and build what is at home. I believe that if the African diaspora sees that that role is theirs for the transformation of Africa, both of us, those of us living here, those of us living abroad, then become one in developing the African society and the African nations. So I think that is the fundamental thing, that we recognize that the skills, the access to education, seeing how things are done in the developed world, all of those things, they put them together. That can help transform the circumstances of our life. There's been a view that for too long that, it requires that people physically displace themselves to come and live here. I think even today with the technology that has been the technology that you and I are using today, the internet, the IT technology and all of that revolution, all of that tells us that you don't necessarily have to be somewhere in order to affect the life of that place. The important thing is that people recognize that in leaving the African continent to go and find their lives and sustenance abroad, that their first obligation is towards helping develop the African continent. That is the attitude that I would like to see amongst us Africans, whether we're at home or abroad. That the basis for us to be able to live lives of dignity as black people and as Africans is a developed Africa. And that both of us, those of us here at home, those of us who are abroad, see that that is our primary obligation, to see how we can affect the development and the transformation of Africa. So, yes, because things went bad, a lot